Brandon, thank you for joining us. I absolutely devoured your debut memoir, 28. You start off by saying you didn't want to talk about football. What changed as you began your writing process?
Thanks for having me firstly. I originally wrote a book that was kind of a bunch of essays about the outside world and some social issues that I was writing about at the time. And I was 2 years out of professional football at that point in time and was really kind of upset about how I guess my career had gone and was unsure what football had meant in my life. And I made a point in that book of writing, like, I'm not going to write about football, and my publisher was fine with that. But a few things happened and I realised that there was something to my relationship with football. There was perspective there that probably isn't heard too often, and a more universal message as well. So to write it down on the page and to share it with the world is something that I'm really glad to have done.
Yeah, because your football journey is actually quite typical in the sense there are only a small handful of players that have really storied careers. Now, do you look back on your career with pride?
Yeah, it's weird to get a memoir from somebody who's only played 28 games, but the reality is we are the majority, and that's a more real portrait in a way of life at the top level. There's 20-odd guys that get picked each week, but there's a list of 40, so more people than not, will be in that weird fringe spot. Am I at peace or proud of my career now? It's still something that, if you're in an elite environment, you're geared towards wanting to play 250 games and you're geared toward wanting to win premierships. And it's really hard to break out of that. And I am definitely, at a place of contentment with my career now. It took, 4 years, I guess, to kind of get there. And writing the book was a big part of that process.
Along with football, family is one of the constant themes throughout 28. Is it fair to say your father, Gary, a rugby league legend, shaped your ideas around masculinity? The story about him being punched during a match is something that stood out to me. I think you wrote, I saw it as part of being not just a footballer, but a man.
Yeah, I mean, this book is something that, family was the other thing I really didn't want to write about, because I do have quite a fractured family, and it's something that I've tried to hide from people for a while and wouldn't talk about. Reflecting on my childhood, it's no doubt that you look at the people around you and that's what you shape your identity off. And a big part of this book is kind of the dissonance between the individual and the group and wanting to belong to something really badly. But the impact that can have on your own individual identity. So, I had a dad who was one of the best rugby league players in the world and really one of the poster boys, I guess, of this really macho footballing culture. And that's what I looked at and thought I was meant to be. But, there was always a different side of me, I guess, and a part of me that was really uncomfortable with that. But, I saw a photo of my dad with stitches in his face and I wanted to get punched in the face too one day. That's what it was like growing up.
What prism do you look through when it comes to masculinity these days?
Good question. I mean, the thing about masculinity is you could put that word on the front of any footballing memoir, I think, and it would serve as a case study for it. I view masculinity as something that it can be a mask in a way. If I never told people this or wrote this, and a lot of people would think I am fully fitting into those circles. I played footy at the highest level. I used to drink beers and get really drunk and do all those things that we associate with that form of masculinity. So it's quite easy to wear that mask. Everyone is affected in different ways by it. I'm still coming to terms with my own definition of it, and it's something I've studied at university as well. But at the end of the day, I think anywhere we have these societal expectations of people to behave a certain way because that's what we think they should be, I think there's a bit of damage to be done there, and I think there's a lot of grey to be explored as well.
Let's go back to your career at the Swans. 28 games across 4 seasons, and you chronicled everything through your time there with the diary, and it really told of the highs and the lows of that time. Do you wish you'd been kinder to yourself, Brandon?
I wish I had have found a balance to, I still think it's important to motivate yourself to want to be the best, and to have that drive is something I carry with me still today. I use it in writing a lot, but I wish I had have known that my value as a person wasn't just a result of my positioning as a football player. The diary entries that I've included are, I only included 2 years, and I diaried throughout my whole career. Towards the end, I started writing poetry and stuff instead of footy stuff. But, it shows, I guess, the mindset more than, writing with hindsight. That was how I felt at the time. And it was quite shocking for me to reread those words and to see how hell-bent I was on, being the toughest so-and-so on the field, and trying to convince myself that I was like the best player in the competition when I was just a fringe player.
In those diary entries, you do mention the Bloods culture and what it is to be a Blood. Is it mythologised at all, or is it something really tangible? Because it's certainly the envy of the AFL.
It's the envy of world sports almost as well. You talk about the Swans, you talk about the All Blacks. Those are the two cultures that always come up. And the Swans culture, it's a different version of what it was than when I was there now. I mean, it's a lot younger playing group, and I'm sure they've changed all those words they use. But we were relentlessly honest with each other. We had incredibly high standards. And to be honest, I think I probably shouldn't have played as many games as I did as a professional footballer. I think that, that Swans trademark made it a lot easier for me in a way, because it just was like, do this, be this. And I've always been really good at doing that. But at the same time, that off switch, I write about that in the book, and finding the off switch once you leave the field can be quite hard to do when you just kind of relentlessly wire yourself to be that way.
How was your relationship with John Longmire? In your book, you wrote, I always found Horse's stature, voice and game day coaching box antics quite misleading. He held a gentle care for those around him.
Yeah, I mean, I sent Horse a copy of the book in advance and wrote him a nice letter to it, and he responded. I think he's reading it now because they've been travelling around the country. And, I think at the time when I was playing, I was, it's in the diaries, I was really against Horse in a lot of ways, because the weird dynamic is you want to be in that team, but when you're not, you kind of want to prove him wrong. So one week I might have been playing reserves, being, I'm going to prove Horse wrong, I'm going to make him look stupid. And the next week I might be playing for him. And that's such a weird thing to experience. Now I can kind of sit back and, appreciate the difficulty that's in that job, and trying to convince 40-odd people they all deserve a spot in the 20-odd person team. I've seen Horse since then, and I do firmly believe he has a great level of care for all the players. And, you see him shouting and all that in the coaching box, and that's just white line fever. We're all kind of like that in a way. But he was always took the time to pull me aside and ask me about things, and ask me about my family, and ask me how I was going. But I was the one who in that relationship was kind of had my guard up, because I just wanted to be seen as a tough footy player who was doing everything right.